Hey guys, so in response to my last video, I got a lot of positive responses, some negative, and then there was that in between from a lot of people that voiced their support to me privately and said they wanted to say something publicly, but they weren't really sure about how to say it. They were worried about sounding ignorant. And across the board, I felt that people have put their necks out for a lot lesser causes, haven't been worried about sounding ignorant in a lot of lesser instances. So I didn't really I didn't really take that as an excuse. I didn't really see a lot of sympathy for that. It's okay to put your neck out, and even in the simplest ways, like people have been sharing other people's posts, showing that allyship, sharing that change.org link, to demand for Breonna Taylor's murderers to be brought to justice, the Minnesota Fund for Floyd, and just a bunch of a lot of other things. One of the things that we're not really asking for is the performative follow chains. And the issue with the performative follow chains is that in a lot of them, I see the names are taking up more space and bigger than Black Lives Matters. In a lot of them, I don't see a link or a call to action. So it seems just very, very performative. So and the performance you're giving is, I'm not a racist, I value Black lives, but do you? Because even when doing the bare minimum, a lot of it is being done wrong, and there is a right way and a wrong way to support. So something I've been talking to a lot of my Black friends about is, so what's the ask? It's not like in the 1960s when it was maybe clearer ask in terms of voting rights, desegregation of schools, lunch counters. We had things like affirmative action stem out of that, which actually has mostly benefited white women. So now it's what's the ask, because there were technically laws put into place, but a system that wasn't really made to uphold them. So I said, are we just pretty much asking people to not be shitty people? And in a sense, yeah, that's what we're doing when we're asking you to not be just not racist, but to be anti-racist, because a lot of you have had a whole generation, your grandparents, your parents, to be not racist, and that hasn't gotten us very far, clearly, about what's going on in this country right now. So we need you to step up now and be anti-racist, and that is having those uncomfortable conversations. That is also realizing that we were never post-racial just because Obama was president. And if you ever found yourself uttering that, or if you say things like color doesn't matter, you don't see it, then I urge you to do a really big evaluation about what it means to be just not racist or anti-racist. I think that, and if you find yourself the former of the two, then we're tired of it. We're tired of an ally like that. That is actually not an ally. So your silence has been really complacency. You've benefited off of this system, and it's time for you to give back, to make reparations, and to acknowledge it. And it's not just about the racist in chief, that's the president, quoting like disrupts from race riots in the 60s. It's not just about him. He is the product of the whole system, and what's being asked for is a major systematic overhaul, like education, elected officials, especially education. I know God knows where a lot of people at Trinity would be without Miss Muniz. And one of the things that you may have seen is about divestment in police funding. I've never had a job where I could show up and say F you to the people. The police are there to serve and protect us, and it is not just about these bad apples, but the overall militarization of the police force in the United States. That is a huge problem with it. And putting that funding in things like healthcare and education. Trump is calling governors to go after protesters aggressively. He said, it's a movement. If you don't put it down, it gets worse and worse. The world is laughing at the Minneapolis police station. You'll look like a bunch of jerks. This is juvenile, aggressive language that he's using to fuel these people, to back this aggressive policing, to back this aggressive police force. And a lot of people that are like law and order about, they're venerating a system that's been designed to protect them. So you need to remind your governors, your elected officials, that they're serving you as the people, and this is how the police force should act. This is how they should act. This is what should be punishable. You need to remind them by that using your voices, calling in, writing to your local governments, emailing, things like that. And that's what we're asking you to do. Those are just some of the things you can do. I know in Dallas, the police force was asking people to send videos of some of the rioters, some of the looters, and a big K-pop person said to send them fan cams, told them to flood the Dallas police force system with fan cams, of which they did so many of. And that is the kind of allyship that we're looking for. That's what we're asking you to do. Use your voice for something a lot greater than yourself. And that's why the follower change is frustrating, because there's so much more you can do, and there's so much more that we know that you're capable of. Under Trump, the DOJ has all but abandoned broad-scale investigations into police misconduct. That's a major problem. They did, I think it was 12 when George W. Bush was president, 15 when Obama was president, and one so far when Trump has been president. That's a major problem. There's no oversight. What's that department focused on now? They're focused on backing churches that want their right to congregate during stay-at-home orders. So you see where the priority of this administration lies. And that's why we need your help. That's why we need your voices. You're out there protesting, your funds, investing in Black economic empowerment. And that's something that you can do with fashion brands. That I worked with a lot of small Black fashion designers, and funding and sustainability throughout that funding was always a problem. Like, it was constantly a problem, and they didn't have a lot of wealthy parents that could fund, and their families invested all that they could in them, but it wasn't enough to last through the ups and downs of being an emerging designer in the fashion industry. And that's that big issue about generational wealth in this country. I've seen some brands doing it right, like LaFleur, Marc Jacobs, to name a few. And it's about not just having those uncomfortable conversations, but uplifting Black voices. There's a reason that Instagram has a whole sticker about sharing Black stories, because the majority are often not shared. I think about the real estate you're about to occupy in my timeline. Stand with disruptors. I know that when Danielle Prescott calls people out, one recent thing was about the Real, where she mentioned to me that I was like the only person who got in contact with the Real, and it was like, how are you going to have a panel for Black History Month and then have a white woman moderating it? And they gave the same blanket response that they gave to me as they did to Danielle. But how many of our white friends in fashion reached out to the Real? I don't know if I was the only one that reached out after seeing Danielle's. And it's about standing with disruptors like her, like Lewis, instead of distancing yourself from them because you don't want it to interrupt your check. I think that that's a big issue, making sure that you're not promoting that crabs in a barrel mentality. That's a major thing in the fashion industry, definitely in the travel industry. Stop shying away from uncomfortable conversations. Like, have them amongst yourselves, talk amongst yourselves, because it is coming up. It is coming up when you're posting Desmond Tutu quotes, you're posting Martin Luther King Jr. quotes, and then we're applauding you and getting harassed on your post. So I think that there is the difference between being anti-racist is saying something to those races. Ignoring them is not an option anymore. You see what happens about this systematic ignoring those races. You've seen that's George Floyd. That's what happened to Breonna Taylor. That's Trayvon Martin. Do you know that George Zimmerman is currently walking around threatening the lives of Jay-Z and Beyonce? But things you need to follow up on after their hashtag. You need to do the work in your office places. You need to ask these questions. Ask why you're so uncomfortable with this conversation, so you're not passing it along to a future generation, like your parents, who you don't consider racist, and they're probably not racist, but they passed on a lot of these same practices to you because you've never questioned it. And right now you're shocked, where you should be angry, but you shouldn't be shocked. Like, you really shouldn't be shocked. So that's the ask, the long and short, and there's more, but that's the beginning of the ask. So it's about more than just that follow chain. Thanks. And those are the kinds of uncomfortable conversations that you're going to be having, and you're going to realize who in your life are anti-racist or just not racist. And please, guys, commit to doing the work and commit to your education as a lifestyle. When this is not a hashtag anymore, when make sure your kids know it, when it's not George Floyd's name, when it's not Breonna Taylor's name. Remember, Trayvon Martin, murderer, it was acquitted. So commit to really doing the work, because it's a long haul. It's our life, so make it your lifestyle.